Thanks for tuning in, guys. This episode is brought to you by Old Man Copper Smoke Eater Mustache Wax. Literally smells like a freaking house fire. Keeps you thinking about jobs all day long. Use discount code COPPER, COPPER, 10% off. Good dude. Check him out. Instagram, Facebook, website, oldmancopper.com. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I have the privilege to sit down with Trevor Williams. He's 15 years total in American Fire Service, 10 now in LA. He's worked 10 years as a truckie on the west side of Hollywood. Now he just promoted a wheelman, so I'm sure he's on the move, but we'll cover that. Crazy thing is he's a survivor of the 2010 Haiti earthquakes. He also has founded a nonprofit firm foundation, which has built 39 homes for families in need. Trevor, being a good dude and everything else, is also trying to help us in the American Fire Service. He's the inventor behind the Williams Key, which is why we're going to sit down and talk today. He's also co-founded Estate Fire Defense, a company focused on protecting communities through wildfire preparedness and home hardening solutions. It's a big thing in my region, especially in the state of Arizona. So we have a lot of those issues that spreads that whole West Coast. But with all that said, my brother, Trevor, did I screw anything up? Did I miss something? Is there anything when you add to your bio before we sit down and start talking about your crazy inventor brain and this Williams Key, my brother?
No, you pretty much nailed it. Thank you, Steve-O, for having me on. Been looking forward to this. You have an awesome podcast, and I love your energy and what you're all about and talking shop. So happy to be here. Very excited. Let's get into it.
Perfect. Well, for the guys that cannot watch, right, watching this on Spotify and YouTube, but for the guys that can't watch, he's got a killer stash. And the reason why he's got a killer stash, just like myself, is, remember we said in the very beginning of that bio, he's a truckie. So we will begin on to the truck end. With all that said, all right, so we start talking about truck work. We've had a couple really fucking solid truckies on the last several episodes between the truckie, Colin Ward. We had freaking Mickey Farrell, freaking New York City Fire Department. So you're like, these guys are the best of the best, the cream of the crop. So with that said, part of that truckie work, and these guys talk about, is the swag, right? So the swag when it comes down to being able to do things that not all the companies on the fire ground can do, or maybe just aren't very good at it or don't have the expertise. So with all that said, is that kind of where the Williams Key came from? Like when it came down to, hey, let me look as badass as possible in front of my friends? Or where did this brainchild even start? Because if I was to invent something, it's going to be exactly what I just said. I want to look fucking badass in front of my friends. So where were you at? How'd you kind of get to where you are? And then please explain to the guys, especially the ones that can't see, what is the Williams Key, right? And then what can it do, my brother?
No problem. So it started with humble beginnings. I would love to say I had swag right out the gate, but I came from a background as a finished carpenter. And as a finished carpenter, I was installing doors and locks all day long, thousands of them, not thousands a day, but over the course of the time I did it. And I kind of came to have an x-ray vision when it comes to doors. And that's great for a fireman, but I wasn't a fireman yet. So I was working on my craft as a carpenter. I would make tools. Sometimes we'd get locked out of stuff. I'd make things to get into those. And I knew how to pick locks and bump locks and all the wazoo tools and stuff I knew how to use or I would learn about. So it's always been a passion of mine, being able to take care of doors. And there's a time and place for breaking them down as a truckie. Absolutely. I love the irons, and I have an original Hugh Halligan sitting over here in my corner and stuff.
No, you don't. Hold on. Stop. This is a shit that you need to tell me before we hit record, brother. Come on, man. That is like, are you talking about a gem? Holy hell. All right. So
insignia on there, AMDG.
Let it settle for a second, just so the camera is all focused. I want to make sure everyone that can see this gets a chance to see this, because that's rare. That is amazing, dude. I love it.
So, yeah, I'm really into this. If I'm ever very wealthy, I'd probably collect them. But
yeah,
I only have one right now. Anyway, yeah, there's a time and place for all those tools. And I pride myself in my skills with the irons and the rotary saw, chainsaw, all that stuff. But I do have, it irks me a little bit when a door gets destroyed that doesn't need to, or we're at the wrong location and we bust in Granny's door and now she needs a new door, and the fire was across the street. Right. So where the Williams key came about, I was new on the job and working at this truck house, West Hollywood, Firehouse 8. And Firehouse 8 is one of the largest LA County fire stations as far as personnel goes. 13 members per shift and 70-year-old station. So very traditional. We have a 3-story pole. It was the first truck in all of LA County. We got it in 1950. It's not the same one, but we did have the first truck in the county. And we run a pretty special configuration. So we have 3 light forces in LA County, which is a truck followed by an engine, usually a 2-person engine. And all the trucks are 4-man, except for ours. We have a 5-man truck. So with the light force configuration, it's a total of 7 people. So when we show up, I don't know how it is in other places, but my assumption is that's a lot of people showing up for truck work. So everybody knows what they're doing. We train a lot. We are fairly busy, and we're like a fine-tuned machine, and we take pride in that. Anyway, I was new on the job at this truck house, and I had these special skills that like I didn't really want to let on right away, just because I was new and I wanted to be humble and do the right thing and not stand out too much, but be good at my job, be good at my craft, and just going through the motions, right? But eventually it kind of became known that I knew a little bit more about doors and locks than I was letting on, and they kind of started letting me just do my thing when it came to getting into doors. And before long, I was pulling out this what's now known as the Williams key, but a crude version of it that I made out of a square, and I was using it a lot. We have a lot of apartments in West Hollywood and a lot of gates, and this tool is great for gates. And what it does is it bypasses the strike on typically outward swinging doors and opens it without doing damage. And for your visual listeners,
Perfect. We get to see it.
See if I can put it against my arm here. Oh, that way. There we go. So
there you go.
It's got a blade on one side and then like a shove knife style on the other. And this is a solid version. There's a folding version. There's a triple XL version. So all different sizes. And typically people like to be able to hold it on their person. So the folding version is one of the most popular versions. However, it is limited a little bit because there's a sliding nut on it, and that allows you to fold it out. But that can get in the way on certain applications. But it gets you into most stuff that you're trying to use it for. The standard version, which is just that solid piece, is stronger and cheaper, and I would recommend that over the folding version if you have space for it. So we see like engineers, wheelmen and stuff like that, they'll hide it behind their seat and kind of do their size up as they're rolling up. And if they think that's something they need to grab, then they grab it. I'll see, we have a medical side for LA County where everybody is trained as an EMT. And then we also have paramedics. So what I've seen a lot of people do is hide it in their medic box, and it's just always there. And those are kind of the calls you want to use it for anyway, because it's not a fire. You don't need to bust down the door. Urgency factor is not always there. But if you break the door, now you're dealing with a headache. Whereas if you can just open it gently without doing any damage, that's way better and sometimes faster too. So having it in that EMS box is great, and it's just always there if you need it. You know, you put down the box to try and open the door, and you're like, oh, it's right here in my box. Pull it out. So that's kind of where it started. People saw me using it, right? It was just for me, and only I would use it because only I had one. And I started getting asked, hey man, that stupid tool you got, can you make me one? You know, nobody ever wants to give a compliment, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, it takes me a while to kind of grind it out of metal, but I'll make you one, you know. And I made one, I made two, and before long, everybody kind of wanted one. And I was like, all right, this is taking a lot of my time, and I'm just being nice because I'm the new guy, but I don't have a lot of time to be doing this. So I reached out to a fabricator, see if they could make me a small batch of like, I think like 20 of them. So I did that, threw all those away, and then it just took off. Because Eights is a big house with lots of people coming and going, lots of people working overtime shifts. It was getting a lot of eyes, and then those people would leave, work other stations, use it. And, you know, we've got thousands of firefighters in LA County, so it started getting around. And then I was getting hit up left and right, and I decided like, okay, let me just start making these, you know, to improve the fire service and improve, you know, like us getting in and causing less money to the department from doing damage. And these are like it is a faster entry method when it works. And it doesn't always work. It won't go through a deadbolt, and there's thousands of types of locks and doors out there. But part of the training is knowing what doors it works with and knowing when to grab that tool. Always knowing what the right tool is to use, right? That's like the beauty of hiring a mechanic. He's spent years and years learning the right tool to get that screw out, and it takes him 5 minutes when it would take you an hour. So yeah, it turned into a business pretty quickly. I started having them powder coated in black so that I could engrave them, and somebody taught me how to use a laser engraver, which was just strong enough to cut through paint. Fire service, we love our custom stuff. So putting people's names on it, people's departments. You mentioned Colin Ward earlier, so I did one for the truckee, right? That's his handle. I
Yeah.
sent him one, and we speak from time to time. And it started like really getting popular once like social media got involved, right? People would use it, send me a video, I'd post it, and then it just took off like crazy. And I think the thing that pushed it the most was like the hate comments, right? Like, oh, that could be used by a burglar. Like, why would you like show the public how to use this and this and that? It was always an argument, but those comments would generate views and make it trend, right? So I was like, cool, yeah, bring it on. Let's argue about this and let's have a discussion at least, And my argument was always like, criminal is not going to necessarily want to pay for this. Brick is cheaper to break a window or a crowbar, and they probably have their own tools. They've been doing it longer than I have, so it's never. I've sold about 60,000 of them at this point, and I've never had like a bad like the police has never come to me and be like, hey, you need to stop because we're seeing an increase in crime or anything like that. It's never been left on the scene of a crime, and if it has, like, it's never been brought to my attention. But yeah, so that kind of got it to take off, and now I've sold to like three of the Navy SEAL teams and all the military branches and the FBI. And yeah, it's just crazy, like the types of businesses that I've been able to sell them to, and repo guys and bounty hunters. And like, it's cool how it took off. It was something I never intended on. And then hearing kind of the rewarding part where I'd get the stories of how it was used and how it would impacted somebody, where somebody opened a door fast enough to catch a full arrest and make a save, or somebody opened a door and saved a guy from jumping out the window, or whatever it may be. But, and then I was like, okay, I'm working hard at this, just trying to keep up. But stuff like that makes it rewarding. And um, I've dedicated a good amount of my life the last couple of years to getting these tools out and talking shop with guys and training. And I go out of my way to like, hey, let's talk about the door you had trouble with. Send me photos, send me videos. Let me break it down for you and explain how this may work with the door, or maybe it won't. Um, but one thing we found is, if you're familiar with like the dead latches on doors, it has that anti-loining pin, which can turn a strike into virtually a deadbolt. So the biggest thing people have a problem with is defeating that, because when that loading pin is engaged, it turns into a deadbolt and you can't use the Williams key on it. So we found you can gap it a little bit with maybe a flathead screwdriver or an aluminum wedge and give yourself just a little bit of space to get that pin to disengage. Then the Williams key will work on it. Another method, if that, there's a thing called a strike plate, which is the piece of metal in the door frame that the strike falls into. It's like it protects the strike and kind of catches it. It's the keeper for the strike. Sometimes they're misinstalled, or that hole's a little bit too big, and you're able to push the door in if it's an outward swinging door and get that strike to fully fall in the hole. If it does that, the loading pin will fall in too, and it'll disengage it, and then you can open it up with the Williams key. So yeah, that's where it came about, and it's been quite the journey. It's also given me the platform to have a little bit of a voice to do interviews like this, and then to also create other products. So Williams Key like was the foundation, but now people trust the brand, they seek it out. There's other tools out there like it, but I think that the brand itself has like proven itself. So people go out of their way to get a Williams Key, and now I make wedges and other door entry tools. And if it wasn't for the Williams Key, they'd probably go find a wedge somewhere else. But because I make them, people trust the quality and want to try it out. And so I've had a lot of success with stuff like that too. Like I make door hangers. So after you enter into a building, if nobody was home, let's say a smoke alarm is going off, um, it's unnerving to come home if you're a homeowner. You see stuff that's out of place, but nobody told you what happened, and fire department had come and gone, knocked over a plant, left a footprint, whatever it may be, but you never heard anything about it. So maybe you think you got robbed or whatever. So I include these for free with all the purchases. And it's like a little note hanger saying like, hey, 911 entered your property. We fixed this problem. We broke your window, whatever note you want to leave. And then they feel better about it. So some departments will pay for these and have them customized with their logo on it, but it's just another one of those simple kind of dumb things that I came up with that is very useful and it serves a purpose. So that's where it's at.
Well, dude, so I mean, still talking about the Williams key for a hot minute here. So, what was it? And I know you went through a gambit of different ways that it works, but what was it initially invented for? Like, what style door? Bathroom door? Because so in my tool compilation in my pockets, like everyone does the hey, what's in your pockets? One of my things is a shove knife. And I
Mm.
know that your tool, the one end is basically a shove knife. And I only have that for those. Hey, my son locked himself, my 3-year-old son locked himself in the bathroom. Like, we know these calls. We go in and we're
Right.
trying to literally provide zero damage if possible. Is that where it kind of started? Is that was the initial intention? Can you just kind of march out that, brother?
Yeah. So the short answer is no. I made it to get into doors that had an anti-vandal plate. So
Mm,
sometimes you'll see this piece of metal that covers up the strike on an outward swinging door. If that piece of metal wasn't there, you'd be able to see the strike and use a shove knife, just the handle part that you carry in your gear. But because that metal plate's in the way, as long as it's not a full door one, this blade can slip behind that plate and still toggle that strike and open the door without doing damage. It's like it defeats another security measure in addition to just the shove knife and being able to see that strike on like a lower security door. So these work best on gates or yeah, it really shines when there's an anti-vandal plate covering the strike on an outward swinging door. That's always my go-to when I see that. They do also bend by design, so you can bend them into a J hook for a double panic door. It's yeah, only double panic because single panic, your jam is going to be in the way. You won't be able to reach around. But on the front of a commercial building where you have the double glass panics, you can bend it, reach around, use it just like a J hook or I don't know if you do much elevator picking, but kind of like an elevator top pick, the same way you would use that to open a panic door as well. Yeah, so that's where it shines. But people send me videos using it all sorts of different ways, like sliding windows. They've been able to get in. Sometimes you can
mm.
activate the release sensor for the magnet on doors with it, stick a glove on it, push it through. Yeah, there's all yeah, inward swinging doors too, but not as much, usually just because the jam is in the way. But if you can see daylight through the jam, or if you can wedge it enough to get some play in there, it'll work. It can work for that too. As far as the bathroom doors, those are typically inward swinging, and I use a piece of plastic that kind of wraps around the door to open those. I sell a product called the inward door slip knife, and it rolls up into like a little tube, and I keep those in all my pockets. So those are great for inward swinging doors, and also a great way to check if the deadbolt's engaged. If you slip through and you're like, oh, deadbolt, Halligan time, you go to plan B real quick. But if you slip it through and you're like, oh, they forgot the deadbolt, let's keep going. And then you go down to the strike with enough manipulation, a lot of times you can get that door open still without doing damage. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. And the inward door slip knife and the Williams key together are a great combo because now you're tackling like both inward and outward swinging doors. And as far as deadbolts go, I've found that about half the time people don't use them. They forget to use them or I don't know, whatever. But I mean, I don't use mine half the time. So, and especially if you live in like an area where you're not as concerned about crime, yeah, it's like lower security mindset, and those are doors much easier to get through.
And like you're saying, honestly, anybody, and my city is a prime example. We have areas of my city that are it's extremely expensive to live in, and they're very nice houses. And then we have the exact opposite in another section of our city. It is demographics are this different, but locking is also different. Like you're saying, McMansions that we'll run into are typically pretty easy to freaking open up because of exactly what you just said. Like they're not throwing a deadbolt. And on top of that, if a guy is throwing a deadbolt every night, he probably has another lock on top of that too. Some sort of clamshell on the very, very top or whatever.
Mhm.
Or you're like my wife that locks every freaking door with a deadbolt. But that, and again, prior to meeting her, I'd never seen anybody do that. Like used to do garage doors part time forever. And it was funny. Nobody except for garage door guys and my wife for some weird reason, but no one locks the interior garage door from the attached garage because everyone thinks, hey, my garage door is closed. I'm good. So it's just funny. Nobody freaking locks that door. When you start talking about home security and everything else. So we've thought, depending on certain types of issues and things like that, if we can cause minimal or no damage by releasing one of the plastic pieces on the top panel of the garage door, then pulling the latch and opening the garage door that way, but it gets us thinking when we don't have access to Knoxbox keys, that's been a hot topic on my podcast recently because we've been talking a lot of forcible entry and realizing that's kind of when we lost our art for forcible entries when Knoxbox keys came around because guys like us, exactly what you're talking about. It kind of hurts my heart that we decided to go to a Knoxbox key system, which is the smartest thing ever. But I couldn't imagine with technology and society and platforms now, like the magical interweb does, if we didn't have access to truckies would be coming up with all sorts of crazy equipment to open up these, either highly fortificated doors or any sort of commercial doors and things like that. We would probably have so much more because we don't have to do that anymore. It's like, hey, where's the Knox box? Open it up. All the keys are updated, bam, 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 and we just open doors and then resecure them. So it kind of takes away all the little nuance for things like that. But then we run into, and this is just my opinion, in the American Fire Service right now, on that legit, like low emergency, grandma fell. She hit her life alert, right? She's
Mhm.
waiting for us to come in. We're there. We're right down the street. Not an emergent situation, but now we're like, hey, how do we get in? You're like, shit. And then tools like exactly what Trevor's talking about, the Williams key. So I love the fact that they're out there everywhere. And I never thought of it. And I'm telling you, I'm actually gonna talk to the guys back at my place. I never thought about ordering the full size and exactly what you're saying. Put it on top of the EMX box, the BLS box or ALS box. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. But you're absolutely right because on those calls, that's the equipment we're bringing. It makes sense to have it there on an active fire scene. We're not grabbing your tool. We're grabbing a set of irons,
Yep.
99.999% of the time. But yeah, the other half, I feel like we struggle on the most now because we lost the art of forcible entry for a hot minute. We've lost the art of and I'm curious on what your verbiage is because I struggle for the correct verbiage. So forcible entry, right? We're applying force to enter that thing. What would you call like what we're trying to talk and do about and what your tool does? Or no
Yeah.
damage entry. What do you
So
call that?
it kind of falls through the lot category, but there's a couple terms. Respectful entry is one. Soft entry
Okay.
is
Soft
another.
entry.
Those are kind of the two that I use the most. Through the lock, you're still doing some damage because you're pulling it, but you're
Mhm.
not hurting the door. You're just hurting the lock. So there's kind of three phases, right? There's your forcible entry, like using your rabbit tool or your irons or a ram or whatever, and then you're just blowing through the door frame and the door, and who cares, right? You
Mhm.
got work to do. It's job time. And then you got through the lock where you're like, okay, I don't know how to like respectfully open this door, but I know how to use my cam tool, right? And pull a knob and get through that way. And that's like, okay, I only did like $20 worth of damage versus $2,000 worth of damage. So that's way better. You using an A tool or a K tool. And then you have your specialty stuff. Like if you can pick a lock, like I took pride in racing the guys who are getting the Knox key while I picked the lock. And sometimes I'd have to pick two locks, like a strike lock and a deadbolt, and I'd beat them in while they're trying to get their knocks and count the keys and stuff like that. So, or they're trying to ladder a window, and I'm like, nope, we're in, I got it. So if you know how to do that, cool. That's few and far between. Like sometimes departments will, ex locksmiths and guys like me, or somebody who's just passionate about it. They'll end up on the floor, but are you working in a busy area, or you just have that skill and never get to use it? Because it's perishable. You need to be doing it a lot. And then there's like where the Williams key comes in, right? So you have your respectful entry with less skill, but you're still being very nice to the door and the lock and giving it at least an honest try before busting it in. It's always worth a try, right? Try before you pry, for one, and then be respectful to it. And then if not, or if your skills don't allow, then it's time to break the door.
Dude, I love that you went into that. And I'll tell you what, that is, I'm envious of guys like you that know how to pick a lock. It's something I always wanted to learn how to do. And it's, again, I've put zero effort to ever even expanding on how to learn how to do it. But eventually one day I'm going to, because I think that's badass. We ended up hiring one guy, I think, like you were saying, prior locksmith, but he had his own little pouch. They always kept it in his bunker pocket. And that guy took pride in things like what you're saying, like being able to pick it real quick before the boys can even grab the keys. Let me ask you a question, because I don't know the answer, and you have all this lock experience. When you're with a guy at your skill level, when it comes down to picking a lock, is there any damage to the lock itself at all?
No, not unless you break a tool inside it. Picks, very non-invasive. They're just imitating what a key would do. If you have a lock that is old and like hasn't had a key in a long time, sometimes they'll use like dry graphite and spray that in there to lubricate it. And if anything, you're helping the lock. Are you familiar with bump keys? Have you heard of bump
I
keys?
am. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that can damage the lock, but it kind of takes like hundreds of attempts to do that, because now you're kind of forcing a key in many, many times where it doesn't necessarily fit perfectly. But that's a very quick method if you have the technique, and that's one of my favorite methods to use. So
Okay.
I've never
The bump key.
broken a key in a lock, and I've never been accused of breaking a lock before. The hardest locks to pick are the broken locks, because now they're not functioning the way that you think they're supposed to function. So those can be really tricky.
I got you. All right. Well, my brother, listen, we've been yapping about the Williams key for a hot minute now. So before we transition to some fun fireman stuff, is there anything that we didn't talk about when it comes down to the Williams key or your company before we kind of transition to the next section of the episode, brother?
No, just if you haven't heard of me before, keep up with me. I keep coming out with new stuff, and as technology evolves, so I try to as well, and stay up on the current techniques, I would say.
Gotcha. All right. Well, again, if you got lock questions, as a lot of you ladder monkeys should, because I know do too, right? Find this guy on Instagram, Trevor Williams, right? The Williams key. Message him. I'm sure he'll get back to you as soon as he can. So before we start talking about how you guys work in your section of the country, I can't ignore your bio, right? You said you're a Haiti earthquake survivor, which is nuts. I'm an earthquake survivor too, and you're gonna laugh because it is it's a joke as I'm saying this. Literally, I used to work in the Baltimore region area as a fireman, and I lived in the suburbs of that area. And I used to do, as all firemen did, we had part-time jobs, right? So that season of my career, I owned a landscaping company, and it was me, myself, and I. But I had a trailer, a bunch of mowers, the whole nine. There's a bunch of property out there, so I got my zero-turn motor, trucking along. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking that my mower is broken or breaking because it's clanking, it's moving all over the place. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, no, I'm like so upset. And then everything stops and it cleans up. And I'm like thinking, like, was that bad running gas? Like, what the fuck was that? And then people are pouring out of their house like, you feel that? You feel that? And jokingly, like, at this point in social media, people were posting pictures of like a lawn chair knocked over and said, survived the quake of. But so we're talking legit earthquake. that you experienced. First of all, why the fuck are you in Haiti, right? Number one. And then, holy shit, like, were you a fireman back in the day at that point? What did you experience? What'd you do? If you don't mind giving us the Cliff Notes, my brother, because that's got to be a fucking Netflix docu-series, I bet.
Yeah, lots of good questions. It's a little bit of a long answer, but I think everybody will be pretty interested in hearing this because it is a very unique story. Um, and kudos to all those earthquake survivors out there. I'm sure most of us are an earthquake survivor, but this one just happened to be very devastating. So this was a January 12th, 2010, and this is a 7.0 earthquake. It lasted 39 seconds long in the evening, and it killed 300,000 people, left a million more homeless. One of the largest natural disasters of modern history. Like I'm not even sure if there's been anything since then that has killed that many people. 300,000. But 9/11 is 3,000. You know, this is 100 times that sort of devastation. Not to take away from any of that, but just a lot of people died. But to give a little bit of my background and how I ended up there, we'll start there, and then I'll tell the story of what I experienced. I grew up as a missionary. So I was born in Virginia. When I was 4 years old, we moved to Africa, and my dad worked for World Vision, which is a large nonprofit organization. They specialize in emergency relief work, clean water, digging wells, building houses, doing education. A lot of people have heard of World Vision through sponsoring a child. I don't know what it is now, but it used to be like for $1 a day, you know, you can sponsor a child, feed them, send them to school. So if you had heard of World Vision, that's probably why. Anyway, we went to Africa, and at the time, the country we went to was called Zaire, and it bordered Rwanda. We were there during the Rwanda genocide. So if you've seen Hotel Rwanda, that we were there while all that was going on. So we lived bordering a war zone. And at 4, I was hearing, you know, bullets hit our gate at night and land on the roof at night, and military presence and a lot of stuff I didn't understand at 4. And my parents tried to protect me from it, but there's still some pretty vivid scenarios that I remember from just being very young. And eventually we had to move to South Africa to evacuate out of Zaire because it got too dangerous. We lived in South Africa for a year. South Africa was bad for different reasons. It had heavy gang influence, and we found out later the house we got so quickly was because the family before us had been slaughtered in their home. So we got to move right in behind them, and we had little panic button necklaces, but I don't even think they were connected to anything. It's just like a false sense of security. We didn't even have phones, so I'm not sure what it was connected to. But did South Africa for a year, and then back to Zaire, which had changed its name because of the war, to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is what it's now known as today still. So yeah, eventually it's just presidents being overthrown, like the whole country is in turmoil, and we had to leave Africa, flew to Connecticut to recoup, was there for a few years, and then eventually ended up moving to the island of Haiti. Before the earthquake, nobody had heard of Haiti, but it's a island, it's part of the island Hispaniola, which is attached to the Dominican Republic. Lots of people have heard of that. 565 miles south of Florida in the Caribbean. So we went to this island that nobody had ever heard of before, and it was just as bad as Africa. It was it was worse actually. It was a more condensed version of Africa. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and it was just civil unrest and same thing. We had a wall with barbed wire around it and a guard dog and bullets hitting the walls and the roof at night, and most kidnappings per capita in the whole world. Like it was a crazy nuts place to live in. And I was there as a teenager. So now I'm like 13, 14, 15 years old living there at like this uh, important part of my like adolescence, you know, growing up where you're just trying to figure out the world and not knowing each day if I was going to survive. Like that's kind of a different way to grow up, which is why I'm probably now a firefighter with no soul. But it makes you grow up really quick. And I saw all my friends, you know, I had friends who didn't show up to school and like got kidnapped. We had friends who got killed. And so it was a very rough environment. Eventually, the same thing, it got too rough to live in, and we had to evacuate out of Haiti from Haiti. I live in Southern California now. We moved to Southern California. I finished up my high school, joined the Explorer program, decided I wanted to be a firefighter because I wanted that exciting adventure that I'd grown up in my whole life, and I wanted to continue helping people. So I started down that path. And as soon as I was 18, my family left me and went back to Haiti. So I was stuck out here by myself, and that's where I had to learn to hustle and work all these jobs, learn construction, learn carpentry, and I was on my own. So 5 years after I moved out of Haiti, I just decided it was a good time to go back to Haiti to visit my family who was living there at that time. So I just happened to go back the week of the earthquake, a few days before, and I was not a firefighter yet. I was trying to build my resume. One of the things I was trying to get out of that trip was working with the United Nations to help with a new fire program that they were starting. So I was just became an EMT. I had some fire science classes. I'd been an explorer for a little bit. I knew enough about firefighting to get in trouble, and I felt like I could share a little bit of my knowledge and get a little resume boost while I was out there visiting my family and visiting Haiti, where I used to live and came to love. So I got out there. My interview was during the time of the earthquake, on the day of the earthquake, with the United Nations. And it was a formality. It was just supposed to be like, hey, we already know you're coming, but you need to come do this process, get your badge or your ID or whatever, and then we're off to the races. So something in my soul told me, do that interview early. So the day before the earthquake, I was like, hey, I'm already here. Why not? I don't want to waste my time or anybody else's. Let's just do the interview a day early. Let me see if they can take me. So I called them up.
Hmm.
Hey, do you mind if I come in and do that interview early? I got some time right now today. They let me come in and do it. It went good, got the blessing. Had I had been there the next day, I would have died. Everybody in that building died. 300 people died. The building collapsed. And I didn't find this out till later, like a month later, because there was a lot of other distractions during the earthquake. So where was I during the earthquake? I was on the second floor of an orphanage in downtown Port-au-Prince. And I knew these people that owned the orphanage. They had 110 kids. And when the earthquake started, I had never been in a big earthquake. Even living in California, I'd never really experienced something that worried me. When this one started, I didn't know it was an earthquake initially. 39 seconds long. The first couple of seconds felt like a Big Mac truck was like tumbling down the road. And there are lots of big diesel Mack trucks and dirt roads, and everything's a dirt road with potholes and dusty. And so that's what I thought initially. And then after like 5 seconds, the whole building is shaking, and it wasn't fun anymore. I'm like, okay, now I'm pretty worried. And maybe 10 seconds go by, and these are long seconds. It feels like an eternity every second that goes by. 10 seconds go by, houses start coming down around us, and like
Jesus.
debris and dust is going up in the air. And I'm like, shoot, like I'm on the balcony of this second story building that's now everything's falling off the wall. There's cracks in the wall, and we're still moving. So I'm like, do I jump? Like I'm starting to, now I know it's an earthquake. And there's a truck down below. Like I could jump on that if I need to, but I'm not going to do it unless I have to. Plus, there's like all the special needs kids are on the second floor where I'm at. So I'm like, do I leave them? Do I, as firemen, like if we get hurt or die, like we can't help anybody else. So like that's kind of going through my head too, but also don't want to leave anybody. So a million thoughts all at once as this is happening, and you're getting like, it's like, maybe you do or don't, but like time kind of slows down when you're like about to die. So like a lot of things go through your head, and all the synapses are firing, and you're like, your light's flashing before your eyes. So this continued for another 29 seconds. And luckily, our building did not collapse. It was like one of the only buildings that didn't. And the wall collapsed, and a bunch of kids were sitting where the wall was, like not too long ago, eating their food. No, none of the kids died. All 110 kids were fine. And as soon as it stopped, we all got out of the building, carried all the kids. They've like extra special diseases in Haiti that you never see here, or that are very rare in the US. Like hydrocephalus is one. You may have heard of it, but it's extremely rare in the US. And it, these kids will have like heads 2 or 3 times the size of our heads because of like drainage issues and stuff that gets corrected in the United States doesn't get corrected there. So there's a bunch of kids like that. they look funny and they don't live long, and it's really sad and stuff. But these kids had to all be carried out and like taken care of and extra special like tending to and that sort of thing. So we got all the kids out, and now I'm snapping into like fireman mode where like I need to go help, need to go save people, and but I'm also realizing like there's 110 kids that need help here too. Like, and we're gonna have aftershocks. So we got kind of in like a collapse free zone. That's what like went through my head as the safest, because there's a building here, there's walls here. Like if something were to fall now, like we need to be like sitting on the ground and safe. So we just managed the crowd there, me and the other adults, and I could just hear screaming and wailing coming from outside the walls. I was like, man, I really want to go help, but one, my family doesn't know where I am. Cell phones now don't work. And I don't know how bad this was. Like I'm like down in the city and it's like dusk. So we're not getting news, we're not getting any information. I can't see anything that happened around me. Was it isolated to like our square block? Or is it the whole country? Is it the whole world? Like I have no idea, no information. So I just sit there and wait. And I was like, yeah, I think probably my dad will come try and find me because he knows where I am, and I'm going to wait for that. So eventually he does show up. It takes a couple hours. Now it's like very nighttime, very dark. There's no power. There's not normally any power anyway, but when there is, there's like an hour of power a day, but now there's none because everything's been wiped out. And he shows up and just has this look on his face like I'd never seen before. And he's the national director of World Vision at this point for Haiti, and very calculated, very smart guy. And he comes over to me. He's like, "Got to talk to you." And he's like, "Your mom and your sisters. I have two sisters, younger sisters. They were in their apartment, and it completely collapsed, 5 stories. They're on the bottom floor, and we can't find them." So he's like, "I went back there. There's nobody alive in that building." And I was like I wasn't sure. Like I didn't want to believe what he was saying. He didn't have confirmation that what he was saying was true. And so I was like, okay, no, that's not registering. We got to go look for him though. So he takes me that night. He has a car, and we slowly make our way over the rubble on these dirt roads, um, up to his pastor's house, who's up in the mountains. And the mountains were less affected, and the pastor has a satellite phone. He's like, we got to go there first. We're not going to be able to get anywhere tonight. It's just total chaos. There's like parents digging by candlelight, like trying to pull their kids out and vice versa. It's like just crazy, crazy stuff. And yeah, we just slowly made our way up the mountain. Aftershocks are hitting 5.0 aftershocks, which like we hear about a 5.0. We get those here, and they usually don't cause damage. But in Haiti, it's like unreinforced concrete stacked on top of each other up a mountain, and just no building codes. And like, so even these fires are devastating. Like they were taking down more houses, that the houses that were barely hanging on are like now collapsing and stuff. So it's still really dangerous. And hundreds of these happened over the next couple of weeks. So that night, get up the mountain to the pastor's house. He lets us use his satellite phone. We call home. We're like, hey, we don't know anything, but we can't find my mom or my two sisters. Pray for us. It's all you can do at this point. And I, I tried to sleep that night, but there's no way. It's like you're getting more aftershocks. All I can think about is like, is my family still alive? If not, like, can one of them still be alive? Just trying to bargain and stuff, and like trying to process it, but like really never felt like that in my life. And the next morning, as soon as dawn gets up, or the sun is coming up, I'm up too. I'm like, all right, we gotta go. Come on, Dad, we gotta go look for him. Like I'm just very eager, like very anxious to go find him. And he's like, no, we gotta eat. You need your strength. Like he's being like the voice of reason and stuff. Okay, and so we're eating, and he like starts talking about funeral plans, like while we're eating. And I was like, dude, what the heck? Like he really believes they're gone. I'm still in disbelief, but like I had to get up because I was starting to like break down a little bit. And I walk over to the window, and it's my first time seeing the city in the daylight. because it happened at night. We came up the mountain. Now I have a vantage point looking down over all of Haiti
Mm.
from the mountains with the sun coming up, and like the whole country's on fire. And there's just like headers everywhere, smoke. It's leveled. You can hear wailing. The sun is like piercing through the smoke. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is way worse than I thought it was. And that's when I like really lost it. It was like such a vivid memory. And I realized like this country just got totally rocked. And I still don't know the devastation, but I'm like, dude, a lot of people died here. Like it looks like everybody died. It looks like it's just completely gone. So I gathered myself. We grabbed what we could and started heading down the mountain to go dig and go see what we could find. And on the way down, I was just kind of like making eye contact with everybody who had just been through the same thing that I'd been through. And like a lot of people were just covered in debris or bloody or like limping. And there's people walking up the mountain, people walking down the mountain, holding suitcases, holding clothes, like nobody knew where to go or what to do. Most people had lost their houses. And this was before this happened already. As I said, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So these are already like super devastated people, but very resilient. And yeah, so I was like making eye contact and I look different than they do. But we were like all brothers and sisters at that moment. You know, we had all experienced the same thing. So I felt a connection there. And we eventually made it down to my dad's office, the World Vision headquarters, and we stopped there to like get shovels and water and whatever else we could find. And there was like a big commotion when we got there, and they're like, "Hey, your family's here," and we're like, what do you mean? Like, don't mess with us." And as we like came in the front gate, they were like hobbling in the back gate, and it was my mom and one sister, and they're like holding each other, covered in debris, bloody, like beat up but alive. And like we ran over to them and held them and stuff. And I was like, oh man, my youngest sister, like, what happened to her? And then somebody else brought her over and she was alive too. And I was like, gosh, it was the craziest feeling ever, going from like thinking you lost, the most precious thing to you, to getting it back and getting a second chance and stuff. So yeah, I usually get choked up here, so gotta gotta wrestle through it. But very, very powerful moment. And for me and my family, something I think about every single day still. And praise God, that we got that second chance. So we kind of recouped, and they needed some medical attention, but they're all like pretty good, all things considered. And my youngest sister, she couldn't see; she had a bunch of debris in her eyes and stuff, but they're all good now. Like they've all gotten all the help they need and PTSD therapy and stuff, and they're recovering, and they're good. They're good now, but they haven't been back to Haiti. They're in Connecticut. They've gotten reestablished there, but we got them to the U.S. Embassy later. In about it took us about a day to get to the U.S. Embassy to get them evacuated, and the Air Force took them home, along with they were getting out U.S. citizens. And I was like at the U.S. Embassy with my family and my dad. I was like, Dad, I gotta stay. Like the family's good now. Like you take care of them, but I need to stay in Haiti and help. Like I just got my EMT. I have like search and rescue training, fire training. Like I'm in the perfect spot to help. And he did not question it for a minute. He gave me the car keys. He's like, "Yep, you're right." I was 19, by the way. We never discussed my age. So, um, 19, just trying to get on with the fire service. So I stayed in the country for 3 more weeks, and it was just a crazy, crazy ride. Like every day, even that night, I slept that night in the U.S. Embassy. They wouldn't let anybody bring any of their belongings on the Air Force plane, so people were just leaving their bags and stuff. And I got a backpack and just loaded up stuff that I thought I would need for who knows how long. And I woke up to somebody like pulling my backpack away from me and stealing it. And I woke up, took it back, slept on top of it. And then next day I went to the World Vision and just started. I was like, where can I be the most effective? And they saw me how they saw my dad, because my dad was the director. They're like, Mr. Frank, you're Mr. Frank too, and obviously not, like, not even an ounce of like the experience that he has. They're like, yeah, here, you're in charge. And I'm like, no, no, no. But I ended up being in charge of food distribution, and that went horribly. We all almost died. We drove this truck full of like supplies out to like give all these people that needed it, and we just got ransacked. And like people
Ugh.
fighting and pushing and pulling stuff out, and we had to like, let's go, let's go. So I was like, just get out of here if you can, you know. And they're driving off with people hanging off the truck, and me too. Like I'm trying to like hold on, and I was like, all right, next day we need an egress and an entrance, and we need security, and that needs to all be protected, and we need order. So we tried it again in a big football soccer field. They call it football over there, and a little bit better, but went south. So I was like, all right, I've almost died twice in the last 2 days, actually 3 times in the last 3 days. No more food distributions like that. And I ended up joining up with a private search and rescue team. We went around pulling body parts out. We didn't find anybody alive. The department I work for now, LA County Fire, has an international search and rescue team, California Task Force 2. They came down, they found, I want to say it was either 11 or 17 like saves that they dug out. And some of these saves were like weeks later, like really good saves. I ended up bumping into LA County Fire at the US Embassy that first night. And I had lost everything that I had other than the shirt on my back. But I was wearing an LA County Fire shirt and an LA County Fire hat because I was an explorer at the time. And I was proud of being an explorer. And I just packed that with my things. And I happened to be wearing that day. And I saw Task Force 2. So we're separated by a fence. I run over, get their attention. I was like, hey, County, can I join up with you guys? I know the language, and you know, I was here for the earthquake and trying to pitch myself a little bit. And they're like, nope, sorry, kid. We're here with FEMA and OFTA and like all, you know, all this red tape. And I was like, man, I can't believe we're halfway across the world together and you're not gonna let me help. So I was a little bitter about that, but in my head, I was like, all right, one day I'm gonna get hired by county, then I'm gonna get on that team. And eventually I did. But it's a different story. So to finish up my time in Haiti, I just jumped around being as helpful as I could. And I ended up working for a helicopter team for about a week. And that was the good way to do food distribution and the most fun. So they had 3 little helicopters, and this was a bunch of like independently wealthy, good people that flew over from Utah with their own helicopters and just wanted to help because the airports were shut down to like the public. Like they were getting like big C-130 aid planes and stuff like that, but that was it. You couldn't fly in or out. So pitched myself to them. They're like, yeah, come on and help. So I flew in these helicopters for a week, and it was like I'd jump out with a 50-pound bag of beans and a Rambo knife and rip it open and dump it. People would come out of the woodworks, helicopter would take off. I'd jump in it. So much fun. And then they hired the Dominican mafia to like protect us at a baseball field at night. So we'd fly over there at night, sleep there, and then fly back to Haiti the next day, which is like a 30-minute helicopter flight. Also worked in the University of Miami MASH hospital tent. They had 3 of them that they set up at the airport, and they were just like emergency surgeries and just helping as many people that were getting dropped off by the truckload. And on top of like all the people that got squished and amputated arms and stuff like that, all of most of the prisons broke open. So all those people were loose. And the people that go to Haiti, that go to prison in Haiti are like, it takes a lot to get into prison there. So there's some really bad people on the streets. So we're getting like GSWs coming in, and people are still getting murdered because of these people that are out on the loose. And there's no food, water, and gasoline because of the earthquake. The grocery stores collapsed. So there's like all this extra tension because people are hungry. The people at the collapsed grocery store market still hired security to shoot people on site that were trying to like pull food out of the rubble. So it was a mess over there. But I got to work at this hospital with everything coming in, and I had gone back to the collapsed apartment to see if I could find anything of my personal belongings. Like I didn't have my wallet or anything. And I found my wallet. The rubble had already been looted. They found my wallet, pulled it out, took the money, but left the cards and stuff. So you're familiar with the National Registry EMT? It's like the little you get if you become a EMT and get certified. So I just gotten that like a few weeks earlier. I was very proud of it. Worked really hard to get it, and that was in my wallet, and it was like bashed up and stuff because rocks had fallen on it. But when I went to the hospital, they asked for that. I was like, no way. Okay, cool. I actually have it. I pulled it out of the rubble. Give it to them. They look it up. There's a number on there. And then they're like, all right, cool. You're a doctor. You just do whatever you can to help. And so I was like, not malpractice stuff, but you get to do a whole lot more in a third world country in an emergency than you would in the United States. And I was helping with these amputations, like holding the leg while they're cutting the bone and stitching it up. And I helped with an eye removal. I learned how to start IVs there. They would let me push meds under their supervision, like do all this stuff I'd never get to do. So that was neat. But I was getting burnout quick. Like you go until you drop. Like there's just unlimited amounts of work. I was sleeping on the ground, eating MREs, getting up, doing it again, doing it again. And eventually I was like, I can't do any more hospital work. I'm going to go find something else to do. So I did one more thing before I went home, and it was rubble removal from wells. So all these wells had kind of had rubble collapse on them, and these are the water sources for whole villages. So these people aren't getting water, and I got to help dig and get clean water for these villages, and I felt like that was effective. And eventually, I felt like it was time for me to go home. I'm like, and again, listening to my heart a lot, because this whole adventure has been like, I kind of had to like be in the right place at the right time and survive. And I felt like that was very important to me being over there. Like in the beginning, I mentioned I hadn't been back there in 5 years and just happened to be there the week of the earthquake. So it seemed like all this was intentional. So I was like very careful to kind of like listen to my heart, when it came to decision making. And I was like, it's time to go home now. And everybody's like, well, you're not going to get to go home. Like the air- airports are closed. Like there's no flights coming in or out. I was like, oh, I made some friends at the airport. Let me see how far I get. I was determined. And I was like, no, this is the move. Like I need to go to the airport. So I go to the airport, and my goal is just to like keep walking until I find a plane. And there's people still there, but there's no public like transportation going on. So I walk through security, don't get stopped, keep walking, keep walking. I keep going until I'm out on the tarmac. And there's people in tents waiting for a plane. They've been there for weeks. They don't know what they're going to do other than just stay there. And within 30 minutes, somebody had come up to me. They said, hey, we have one extra seat on our private flight. We thought we should come talk to you. You want to go? And I was like, well, yeah, I don't have any money, but I don't even have a passport. But yeah. And they're like, don't worry about it. You can make a donation. It was like MAF, Mission Aviation Fellowship, which is, I don't know, they take donations. So I was like, yep, sure, why not? So within 30 minutes, I was on a private charter to the Bahamas, refueled in the Bahamas, and then flew to Florida, where I like got to go back in the United States with no passport, no cell phone, no money. And so the whole time I'm worried about this, but I'm like, everything's kind of going my way. Like I think it's going to work out. And same approach, like going through customs and security in the U.S., they're checking people's passports. When it came time for me, they just like didn't stop me from walking through. I just walked through. And so now I'm in some random city in Florida with no cell phone, and it's starting to rain and it's getting to be nighttime. Borrow a cell phone, call my dad. Hey dad, I'm back in the US. This is like a month after, or 3 weeks after leaving each other. And he's like, okay, try and get to this other airport by tomorrow. I'll pay for your flight, and then you can go home. So I saw a van, hopped in. I was like, hey guys, I explained my story. They're like, oh yeah, we're going near that airport. I take this free shuttle with them. They're like, hey, if you want, you can stay in our hotel tonight, sleep on the floor. And I was like, perfect, I'll do that. Next morning, free continental breakfast, free shuttle to the airport, and then got on my flight and went home. So it was like the way was paved for me. Like it was meant to be. So that's my Haiti story.
Jesus Christ. Like, I wish I knew all that ahead of time. We would have dedicated the entire episode just for that. Holy, what a fucking experience. And then now you're a fireman, right? With the boys that you saw overseas, which is crazy. And you might not know this answer, and I'm asking just because I'm drawing a blank right now. Who's the other international team? Is it Virginia? Like, is it Fairfax or
Mm-hmm.
Fair? Okay, so Fairfax and LA County or LA City are the international guys.
LA County.
LA County. Okay, gotcha. Cool. And then now you're working for LA. What a crazy freaking turn of events. But it's
Yep.
just like, Jesus Christ. I'm just curious, and I'm sure the answer is no, but any chance you ran into any of those guys that you recognize, like when you got on the job later?
Yeah, so there's one guy, and I think it's the guy I talked to, and I know he was in Haiti, and so we kind of talked a little bit, and I only got to talk to him 10 years ago when I got on, and he was a captain and still didn't care
Okay.
about me. So
All right. All right. Well, fair enough. Holy cow. Well, what a all right. Well, anyway, so before we start transitioning, right? What a amazing story coming from an amazing dude with a ton of freaking real world experience. Now we know the whole locksmith background, we know the survival story and the commitment to freaking helping everybody. And then now he's trying to help us in the American Fire Service by offering a tool that's beneficial. Again, guys, reach out if you want to get one. How much are they, my brother? Where can they buy them? Everything else, just so the guys know they're still listening.
sure, yeah, williamskey.com. They're all on there. There's a bunch of different kinds. Let's see, 34.99 I think is what they start at, and then you can add custom engraving or whatever. Maybe catch a sale. You never know. So
Perfect. Right.
yeah,
Well, love it all. I love it, dude. I love it. I love any true firemen out there that they're making a tool that just makes our life easier. Again, like I said, makes us look more badass. So now we know, right? You work for LA. So in your system, your region, your battalion, how you
mhm,
guys run, whatever you call it, a box, that first in house fire, room and contents, nothing that puts the goosebumps on the back of your neck. One or two, fire line. How do you guys run that? How many engines? How many ladders or trucks? How many BCs? Are you IC driven? Is it a SOP driven? If you don't mind marching out to the guys that aren't from your region on how you guys run the jobs.
sure. So I'm gonna go, and this is how like the standard is across the county, but depending on where you work, there's little nuanced variations. But I can tell you like the proper way it's supposed to go. And all my fire experience is from high rise, West Hollywood, apartment, commercial, like bigger stuff. But yeah, I've had the box fires too, and those are fun, and car fires and stuff. So for a single story, single family, we typically get 4 engines, 1 truck, 1 BC, 1 squad. I think that's it. And yeah, we'll just if it's big water like commercial, we pull bigger lines, so 2.5, or otherwise 1 3/4. We have some big longer stretches. So we have something called a cut a hay where we use a high rise pack to go off at 2.5, and then
Mm.
it's a Y with an 1 3/4 and a mystery tip nozzle, and we hook up to that, and then you can, if you don't pull enough line, which you should know how much you're pulling, but you don't always because you can be investigating and discover like, oh yeah, it's even deeper or whatever. We do that cut a haley. But if it's, and I guess you wanted the simple fire, right? My fires are not simple. My whole 10 years have not been simple fires because of the district I've been in. But with the box fires, yeah, you just pull the line of the door. Most of our engines are going towards 4-man engines. We have a lot of 3, but they're all trying to get converted to 4. And then so my new role, I'm the wheelman, right? So we call that the engineer or the firefighter specialist in my department. And my role would be getting them water, and then if we're first on and I have the time to do it and I've done everything else, make sure they got their line out, I can do forcible entry for them too. And the captain will go in with the firefighter, and that's how like a 3-man simple box fire would operate. And then you
Cool. All right. So,
get the whole
well,
world
hey,
for that.
yeah, and I know your system is very similar to mine where we have almost unlimited resources. So with that said, so yeah, dude, bro, I forgot West Hollywood. So what your district area, the area that you cut your teeth in the fire department, what would be your bread and butter fire, right? I'll leave it at that
Mhm.
because again, I don't know. And it's the same question I asked Mickey Farrell from FDNY because I'm like, hey man, I don't know what district you work in, right? He goes, what? I'm like, what is your bread and butter fire? Like if for them, that could be a room or a level or a floor. What? So for you guys, please explain what a, quote unquote bread and butter fire would be. And then just march it out, my brother, because we don't get a chance to have a lot of high rise talks and mid rise
Yeah.
talks on this podcast yet.
So yeah, high rise is pretty nuts. They're very complicated, and I'm gonna get some facts wrong if I try and do all those. And those are rare, but very humbling because we're not, the aerial ladder's not really doing much. You're not cutting on the 32nd floor roof, like we don't have ladders tall enough. It's probably concrete roof as it is. We're doing rescues with it. But typically the truck will become lobby. So they're kind of controlling the entire ground floor, and they're doing like, they're isolating entry and egress, and they're doing pars. They're stopping everybody, making sure we know what you're doing, where you're going, getting with the building manager, getting on comms for the entire building, shelter in place or whatnot. And then you're as far as fire attack goes, first an engine will start that, and then you're going to just get tons and tons and tons of resources. And we'll typically stage two floors below. Like, let's say the fire's on the 10th floor, we start getting established 2 floors below, all the equipment and stuff. And then you're checking those floors too, because you can get an idea of the layout. They're usually all the same. And then you're hooking up to the standpipes or pumps to the roof, and then communicating about any additional pressure that's needed. And yeah, it's a complicated animal. The most fires that I've had have been commercial and apartment, and we get the same response matrix for that. Not for apartment and commercial. High rise is different. For apartment, so my bread and butter fire in West Hollywood would be apartment house fire, and typically 2 or 3 stories, garden style. That's how a lot of them are set up. And you're going to get 5 engines, 2 trucks, a BC, a squad. I think that's it. And our squad typically does search, so they're quick. They'll get in there first. They'll do like a search and rescue, and then one of the engines will eventually get assigned to search. But they're kind of like the unofficial search, and then they stay available to do medical stuff too. And they'll get more and more squad. So at my department, we don't transport, we don't have our own ambulances. We just have paramedics, and they'll go with the private ambulance if they need to, if it turns into a advanced life support call. But for BLS, they'll just ship them, if you will, with the private ambulance. So, but yeah, how would we fight that fire? The truck would ladder the roof, and then with my station, we get, remember, there's 7 of us as part of the light force for the trucks. Engineer and tillerman ladder, use the aerial ladder. Meanwhile, one of the other firefighters will throw a secondary ladder. And then one of them is doing a hot lap and doing a radio report, looking for any exposures, any like rescues or any special needs items, making sure we are at the right building, describing the fire, what side it is, the location, the floor. Is there heavy smoke and fire showing, or is it no fire or light smoke, whatever it may be, describing it, painting the picture. And that's at the fireman level. Like a lot of times this is kind of like a captain's job, right? Doing a hot lap, doing a size up. Um, so that's what's unique about our area and our operation. Everybody knows what they're doing, and it kind of functions like a fine oiled machine because we practice on it so much. And we also get a fair amount of those calls. So as far as your ventilation goes, we do vertical ventilation. We'll sound out, the engineer will sound out, and then he'll stand back. He'll be safety. And if we have seasoned truckies usually at my station, so we know what we're doing on the roof, one guy will cut, take the hook, communicate with fire attack, punch through, and see if they have good relief or not. Looking for change, getting most of the feedback from fire attack down below. Most of the rest of the department, a captain needs to be up on the roof, but not my station, and not in West Hollywood. I keep saying my station. I'm at a new station now, but I was there for so long, I consider it my station still. But yeah, that's how the operation goes. As far as the fire going out, first an engine will pull a line, and then if there needs to be, if it's obvious, they'll pull the correct line. If it's not obvious, captain and firemen will go investigate and usually bring that high-rise pack, which is 100 feet, 1.75 inch with a Mystery's 200 GPM nozzle on it. And then they'll kind of set that line down when they find the fire, and they'll wait for the other firemen to bring them a supply line. So a 2.5, hook up to that, then they can go start fighting fire. Um, our Remember I said with the light force there's another engine that is attached to the truck, so that other engine is responsible for water. They're like the second in engine for fire attack. So, and this is kind of how it is in a lot of the county. The first rig will start fighting fire as long as they know somebody's right behind them to bring them a water supply. If they're out in the middle of nowhere and they're first on scene and they know there's no relief coming, they'll get their own water going in. Like you never want to run out of water. So if you're feeling like, hey, we need to get water going in, then you do that. And that could be like out in the desert. Like the county is really spread out. So you have Malibu, you have the high desert, and then there's like 3 different regions and stuff. So hundreds of miles of where you could work, and it kind of functions differently depending on what part of the county you're in. And we have like hazmat and USAR, and we have a fireboat. I'm boat trained. So I worked on a boat for a lot of my first 10 years as well at a different station for like overtimes and stuff like that. So it's a lot you can do out here. It's pretty cool.
It sounds like you said, it sounds like an amazing department to work for. And just to clarify, so, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, but correct me if I'm wrong. But for the guys that kind of got lost in the sauce for a second, squads for you guys are 2-man pickup trucks, right? For the most part,
Yeah.
paramedics, and they go, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like rescue guys, like basically an ambo crew, but they're not transporting, right?
Yep.
So they have their turnouts, their SCBA, I'm assuming a compilation of hand tools, and they're going in just as in front of the engine company or to support them. Is that how you guys work it?
Yep. Yep. They'll do
Okay.
that. They're kind of like cowboys sometimes. They're not supposed to be, but it happens a lot where they'll grab a line, they'll go fight fire real quick, or they'll go make a
Right.
save real quick. They kind of fit in where they can until it's time for them to be assigned to like patient care. So they're trying to do
I
as much
gotcha.
as they can without getting too committed.
Before getting treatment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then if you've ever seen the show Emergency, those are paramedics, and that's where the paramedic program came from. And that first episode was filmed at AIDS. So there's a lot of history at that West Hollywood fire station. I think there's been like 4 shows. There was one before that called Rescue 8, and then there was Emergency. And then I was there when they filmed LA Fire and Rescue, the first episode of that. I'm in it and stuff, and my shift. Yeah, there's just a lot of cool history when it comes to that place.
I mean, that's badass. Like a lot of you've had experiences throughout the world right now that a lot of guys haven't had a chance to experience or ever will, just by freaking sometimes dumb luck, being in the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the right time, to kind of depend on how you look at it. But so I feel like we know the why now, why you became a fireman. I mean, you marched out an incredible I I have the privilege, I'm going to use this word very loosely right now, to train the youth of the fire service right now. And I got guys that, I mean, they're living with mom, right? And they still haven't figured out how to make ramen noodles. And you're freaking in Haiti, right? At pretty much the same age ish, doing a fucking world of good. So I'm sure when you went through a hiring process, those guys were like, yes, picking up this motherfucker right now. He gets it. So is there anything outside of what we've heard on top of the why of why you became a fireman that you want the audience to know, my brother?
No, I think that part is clear. My process was not as easy as you may think. I applied to 60 different departments. I flew all around the country. I was very motivated. I probably did try the hardest for LA County because I did the Explorer program and I was local to there and I knew how they operate and I knew it was a good department. But it took me almost 7 years to get hired from the time I started testing, and I'm fine with that. I gained a lot of life experience in the meantime. I stayed out of trouble. I treated every job I did as if I was a firefighter and took pride in my work. And even as a construction worker, I'd throw the ladder the same way I did it at the fire station. And I'd flake out my extension cord like I'd flake out a hose. And just like in my head, I'm like, I'm a fireman already. They don't know it yet, but I am. So it was
Dude,
in my
I,
heart.
I love it. I love it. Guys that are listening to this that are either in rookie school right now or just got on the job or might be trying to get on the job and they're doing an explorer or cadet program, something like that. Take something away from what you just listened to with Trevor over here, because it took him a long time. In our generation, it took a long fucking time to get hired compared to how it is now. So there's not a better time, personal opinion, to be in the American Fire Service. Again, my personal opinion, than right now, because the opportunity is everywhere. Remember, it was never this easy prior to. There's guys that are either your senior firemen, your engineers, your pump operators, your captains, lieutenants, battalions, whatever, that fucking took a long ass time, went through a lot of shit to get this job. So again, respect the traditions that were laid down prior to you. Dude, What a fucking great story. What a great addition to the American Fire Service to have a brother like you, right? In what you've done so far just with your tool manufacturing and then your heart of service, definitely for sure. You know, like I said, LA's they got a good brother with you. But dude, I love everything you've done. So obviously you love the American Fire Service. Like you just said, you're doing so. I'm flicking out my extension cord like it is fire hose, right? So traditions, we are steeped in traditions, my brother. I know you know that. So it doesn't have to be a LA thing, anywhere in the country. But what's your favorite American Fire Service tradition? But more importantly, why? It's like, why do you love it so much?
Okay, let's see. So I might say a few things. The one thing I like is this is a brotherhood now, brother and sisterhood around the whole world, right? And we have the American Fire Service, and we take great pride in it. And a lot of the rest of the world does too. So I like how there's always that connection. Like if you travel and stuff like that, you can always go into a firehouse, have a cup of coffee for the most part with these guys, and they'll treat you like family. So that's super cool. And you just have this like understanding, like we risk our lives for people, and we're cut from a different cloth. I would say like the true like red-blooded fire people are just like they're built a little bit differently, right? And you'll see a difference between actually I'm going to get into that a little bit later, maybe with your next question. But so I like that you can like and be welcome into a fire station, and that's big tradition. I like cigar time, right? I like hanging out with the crew, kind of decompressing from the day. That's your family. You're spending at least a third of your life with these people, usually more. In my case, half my life I spent at the fire station. So that's what we razz each other all day long, right? We make fun of each other and all in good fun. But at the end of the day, that's when like the real talk comes out, right? And like I'm struggling with this or that, or like I'm dealing with this with my wife over a cigar. I love that those moments, right? Because those are like the sincere, true person to person talks, and and you're still in your turnout pant, your bunker pants with your rig, and like just taking pride in what you're doing. And we never stop talking shop either. So that's like it's more than a career, right? Or it's more than a job, right? It's a career. So it's like we talk about this on our. We're talking about it right now. Like we talk about it all the time because we love it. You know, it's just part of who we are. Um, I had one other thing. Oh, okay. One tradition that's specific to eights, West Hollywood, is when somebody promotes, we do a pub crawl, and we call it a bike ride. It used to be
And
bikes, but
we call it a bike ride. I love it. Hey, wait, we're going to do a professional drinking event. We're going to call it a bike ride, right? Continue. I'm sorry.
yeah. So it used to be a bike ride, but too many people were getting hurt, and it that so the events that we do off duty is what like that's when all the mending happened, right? If I had beef with somebody or whatever, maybe we can fix it over a beer or a fist fight, and but we're good afterwards, right? So our Christmas party, like we have a few events throughout the year, but the big one is probably our bike rides, where that's where like everything comes out. And we do this pub crawl, and we do it when somebody promotes, and like it is their bike ride, and then we pick a theme usually too. So they can be like, all right, for my theme, I want it to be WWF wrestlers. And then everybody dresses as their favorite wrestler, and we do this pub crawl in West Hollywood. And it's like a sight, right? Like it's just a mess, but it's so much fun. And I like have just such fond memories over the last 10 years of I've probably been on 20 of them, right? And you know, we did Armenian theme and Mexican theme and the wrestler and rompers and 80s, like just whatever theme you want to come up with, as long as it's something we can all figure out how to do easily. Like, all right, yeah, cowboy theme, you got it, let's go. So
You made my fucking year. Granted, we were only a couple days into the year so
yeah,
far. Even though when this episode airs, it'll be a little bit later. But I love when I get to hear a area specific tradition because like the theme, like the bro theme and stuff. I love it. Right? You know, no one's ever said that before. Prior to you, the best one I ever heard was I only give one of the two that they had. I'll save it, but the boys from Memphis have a plate rule. If you have a slice of pizza, right, you better have it on a plate. If not, they are allowed to, right, their rules, slap it the fuck out of your hands. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, what about finger food? Like, bro, it doesn't fucking matter. They're
Yep.
like, that's the rules, right? They're like, the only exception to the rule is they're allowed to do popcorn in a coffee filter. But like, I love the fact that like you guys have those house traditions, right? And thank you for sharing that, dude. That's fucking great. Like nothing builds the brother and sisterhood more than exactly what Trevor just said. Those niche traditions. And again, why I love the American Fire Service so much because of the traditions. And then when you get to hear these area specific or even house specific, dude, it's so fucking good. I hope the guys are still listening. Just remind you of a feeling of maybe something that your house does is no other job out there has what we have, brothers. Like it is fucking special. So, bro, thank you. Thank you so much for fucking sharing that. It's just, it is again, part of our job, part of where we came from. And Trevor said it the best. And I believe it. The boys. And when I say the boys, it's not a sexist thing, right? The boys and girls, right? But we say the boys. It's just, it comes down to like, it's part of your identity. And that's a fucking good thing. It's not a fucking bad thing, right? You should be proud of this. It's not a fucking job, right? I had Battalion Chief Shabak on several episodes ago. He's been a fireman through and through in the Baltimore, D.C. metro area, right? Where the fucking turning and burning. He gives a prime example. His dad's an accountant. They never stop on family vacations to check out accounting firms, right? He goes, but guess what? He goes, my family does. We see a firehouse. We haven't been there before. We're like, we're going to stop by and say hi to the boys, right? And exactly what you said. Hey, man, do you mind if I see the house? I'm a fireman, boo boo, wherever. I'm a buff, obviously. You get to walk around and exactly what you said. You probably have a cup of coffee with the guys, shoot the shit for a minute. No one else does shit like that. So again, it's just, we should be so prideful with what we have. And it's up to us. The guys that are listening to this to hold on to that kind of stuff because we could easily lose it. COVID was a prime example for a couple of years. It was shitty, around when it came down to the love of the brothers and sisters. But dude, thank you so much. That's freaking awesome. Now we start talking about traditions, right? We know the why. Let's talk about I'm promoting you, right? I know you just recently got promoted, but I'm gonna give you a bunch of levels above that. So you're the commission of the universe, right? The fire chief of the nation. But through magic, FM, fucking magic, you snap your fingers, you change something in the American Fire Service. Zero sweat equity, instant gratification. It happens right now. What would it be? But more importantly, why? Why are you doing this? That's adding, deleting, whatever it might be. What would your answer be, my brother, if you could do that?
So two more answers for you here, and this is off the cusp, right? I didn't have time to think about these, and I'm sure I could come up with a better one. I'm
Even
pretty
better.
pretty intuitive or inventive, but like the dumb answer is everything more efficient, more money for equipment and salaries. Like that would be great, right? It takes forever to get anything done with our big count. Not to talk bad. My views do not express the department's views, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, no, this is just two dudes, their personal opinions. We all know that.
Yeah. But where my heart is at is I'm seeing a culture shift that I don't like. And you're getting a lot of boys and girls on the floor now that were like baristas and librarians. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they just applied because their mom applied for them. Or like they didn't work hard like I did and like you probably did, where I would have given my left arm to get hired when I was in the process. And I applied 60 different departments, and it's like a softer culture now where back in the day you were getting hired with guys who'd been on 30 years and they fought in wars. They're grown ass men. And now you're getting boys and girls coming on that can barely like tie their shoes or cook or have any of these life skills where they've just had like a soft, easy life. And it's reflecting and it's like almost like a virus, right? Like it's just everything is being affected by it, especially if you have like a lot of newer generation firefighters coming in all at once. They kind of take over the old culture. So having like good training, good values, good tradition, it's like I feel like there's been a shift, and it's just I don't like it. I don't think I can change it. There's a lot of politics involved with it too. But I wish they would make the process a little harder than I'm seeing it right now, where they're requiring more and maybe like make the physical training level a little bit harder, or really preference military experience a little bit more, or like anybody who's been in the military, they've had a little bit of a hard life. You've gone through boot camp, you've seen some stuff, and you've earned something to be proud of, right? So I can respect that. I'm not military, but I respect anybody who was. As chief for a day, or chief in general, and I'll probably get fired after a day, it would be to make the process harder, and really take pride in the tradition, grill people on like the tradition of the department. Like, people don't even ever coming in, they're like, we work 24-hour shifts. Like, I didn't even know, and like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, I lived this for years and years and years of my life, like just trying to get on. And like, I knew every department and every piece of equipment, and all the chiefs and everything about anything I could like find. I memorized it. I learned it. I learned all my stuff. And people are coming in with just like zero experience. Like they didn't try, and it's not their fault. They were given the job. So it's the department's fault for making it less strenuous of a process. It is what it is, but I don't like that change.
So you would make the process more difficult. So you hit a couple heartstrings on mine. So my current position is I'm a captain at a regional training facility in my area, in my state, right? And we have the opportunity to train 11 different cities. So even though the city I work for might not even have a recruit in that academy, I'm there. That's my job right now for the next 2 years. So I take great pride in making sure that people understand that walk through my academy, that we are the final part of the hiring process. And I make it very clear for exactly what you're saying. And we have got heat over the last 2 classes just to kind of share with the country, because I know everyone is in the same boat that you're in and I'm in too. Even though we are both on the West Coast, we're in different states, right? But the guys in New York, the guys in Connecticut and Rhode Island and Florida are all feeling the same thing. And this is what the problem is. Again, personal opinion of this guy, that when the bugles get crossed and they add a lot to your collar pin and you go up to the admin level, you forget the fact that we do not have the same candidates that are now applying for the fire service that when they got hired, the chiefs, right? When you and I got hired, right? That we had to go through. My region, exactly what you said, the average time to get hired was 5 to 7 years. From the day you said, I got my CPAP, my EMT, I'm ready, right? I'm getting all my classes in. I want to be a fireman. Let's go, right? And we're interviewing them, we're applying. It is not the case anymore. Prime example. We're getting ready to start an academy. By the time this airs, we might be in week 1 at this point. So it's right around the corner. But with that said, day 1, minute 1, we will have all of them in the auditorium. Again, X amount of cities. And they'll say, we'll ask them, stand up. What's your name? How old are you? Why did you want to work for whatever city that you're now here for, right? And how long have you been testing for? Prior to it was, hey, man, I was a cadet with city of whatever. I've been trying for 4 or 5 years. I got my EMT 7 years ago. I was a Boy Scout. I was prior military. Boom, 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 right? And no shade against the guys getting hired now because, again, like you said, they got the job. But now it's like, yeah, bro, still live at home, 19 years old. I got my EMT in May. Now we're talking it's January, right? I saw you guys were advertising on Instagram, so I think that'd be pretty cool. Right? And I know you laugh, motherfucker, because I know you have the same dudes, right?
Yep.
And hey, the guys in New Hampshire have the same fucking dudes. The guys in Minnesota have the same fucking dudes. Everyone that's still listening understands I am speaking the goddamn truth right now. So, but with that said, and I'm curious on what you think about this because, again, this is just my personal opinion. I also dislike the transition of what society has done to people's brains on, hey, if I really want it, I can do it. Bullshit. It's not the case. Not everyone can do this job that we're doing right now. But it is our job. And me, I take great pride being at a training facility to say, hey, if you don't meet the standards, right? Sorry, the end, you are not graduating this academy. And we've gotten a lot of heat over the past year, I'd say, because of that, because of how many people have not successfully completed the academy. So what happens is they come back and they say, hey, Jeff, or not Jeff, fucking Jesus Christ. Hey, Steve. Hey, Trevor, right? What are you guys doing wrong? Are you being too aggressive? Are you being too mean, right? It's like, no, we are holding them to the same standard that you got hired for, I got hired for, right? The times haven't changed. The candidates have changed. So we're trying to tell these guys now that, like, hey, city of whatever, let's take a big city in Arizona, Phoenix, city of Phoenix. If you want to successfully graduate 50 guys and gals out of this academy class, you should hire 65 because we're figuring out 25%, 15 to 25% are not the candidates that we were all talking about, right? It will not be successful. But guess what? If 65 end up making it through, cool. Hey, next year you might not have to hire as many. I understand money wise and everything else, but again, your opinion, Trav, like, what do you think? Or am I talking out of my ass right now? Or is like, what do you feel about that holding us guys in our positions now as senior firemen or engineers or suppression officers? It is, I believe, our job now of holding these guys to the standard that we were held to and not letting them make us conform. Again, that's a long fucking rant for a fucking question, but it is, if you haven't figured it out, I'm pretty passionate about it. And I'm actively trying to make sure that we don't digress as the American Fire Service because of, hey, if you put your mind to it, buddy, you'll be successful. That's not life. You and I know that. The guys listen know that. So what do you think about that, my brother?
Yeah, we're in like everybody gets a trophy, culture now.
Yeah.
And no, I agree with everything you said. It's up to the guys who know what tradition looks like and how hard it used to be to uphold that standard. Unfortunately, we're in kind of like I'm going to report you Sue Happy environment, right? Like where you got to be careful, and it's terrible. Like I hate that about our system right now, and it might just be my system. And again, like I don't want to get in trouble for the things I say, so I have to be careful. But I would challenge any new rookie to take that upon themselves, right? Like put in the work, be proud of what you're doing and try and get better every day. You're not owed this. Like don't expect this to get handed to you. You need to work hard for it. You like again, it's not a job, it's a career. So your reputation is going to follow you around. So you might skate by your first year, but you're going to have a bad reputation. And then the good houses are not going to want you. The good people are not going to want to work around you. They're not going to take care of you. And you're just going to do this little spiral your whole career where you're not going to have as good of a career, and it's just going to hurt you in the long run. And it's going to hurt people around you because if they can't rely on you to pull them out of a fire or be knowledgeable about your job, you're hurting everybody and you're hurting the public. And that's why you got hired. So you can never train enough for a job that can kill you, right? That's a famous quote. And you're out there doing it with the recruits all the time. And I love that. And you're seeing what we're getting firsthand. So there's nothing wrong with being a barista and working at Starbucks and then becoming a firefighter, but like own it, right? Own this career and take pride in it and learn as much as you can. And then just get better every day.
The funny thing is the barista. And we're not picking on fucking people that make coffee by any means, but I guarantee you, when that motherfucker was a barista, he told everybody because why? Because then he could get coffee for the fucking chicks, bro. Fucking firemanship is way cooler than fucking being at Starbucks or Dutch Bros or anything like that. So think back to the guys that are listening, think back when you had pride for that bullshit job because you were trying to either impress somebody or to get we all know where we're talking about to make sure just bring that to your fucking adult career now. Now you're adult. You're working for the goddamn American Fire Service. Like, and if you haven't figured it out, it's the best fucking job in the world. And it's something to be prideful. So hold that to the fucking stake, because if we ever end up losing this, then that Maltese cross doesn't fucking mean anything that we wear on our chest. And the thing that fucking pisses me off is the fact that is paid for by blood, sweat, and tears and literally lost lives. and families that have been fucking disrupt forever. So goddamn fuck you if that doesn't mean something to you, because it means something to us for sure. And I don't mean to speak for Trevor, but I know he feels the same way.
Yep.
So again, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, my brother, but it's something that you literally pulled that heartstring, and I'm like, fuck, god damn it, because I talk about this all the time, and I do believe it is our responsibility. The guys listening like that is to instill that into the guy that has 0 days on the job, just got out of the academy, and guess what? You're a senior fireman and got 4 years on the job. So what? Bring it. Challenge yourself. Be the guy that dude looks up to. But make it better. Make it better for all of us. So with all that said, my brother, thank you. You're the fucking man. I appreciate you coming out. I love the answers. I love what you're doing for the American Fire Service with the tool. And again, please, right? William Keys, check him out. Buy one, just buy one. They're not freaking expensive. And then do what we all do, at least in my area, is I buy it and then I hand it to all my buddies and tell them to try to either break it or try to tell me what it doesn't work on, because I love it. So his tools are awesome. Check him out. Use his stuff. And then just give props to the brother, right? He's just trying to make everything better for us and make us look more badass. So my brother, thank you so much. We'll catch you guys in another 2 weeks. You have anything to leave the audience with, Trevor, before we sign off?
I think we've covered a lot. I was awesome talking to you. You're a great guy. This is a very organic, amazing conversation. Hopefully there's somebody out there gets something out of this that they can take with them through their career and their life. So thanks for having me on the show, and I had a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Trevor. I appreciate you, my brother, and we'll catch you guys in another 2 weeks. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, review if you can. Helps drive traffic to our podcast. Remember, let's leave our ego out of the fire service. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one's looking for credit. Much love. Let's stop beating our own and become better firemen. Catch you next time.